Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the second edition of Cinema Effect. Hi, it's me, I'm Zach, and I'm joined by Paul Thomas Anderson's number one fanboy, Liam.
Hello, how are you, Zach?
I'm alright. Did you appreciate the spicy introduction?
Yeah, that's good. I like that title. Thank you.
Good, okay. That's good. I was thinking about trying to be creative, trying to give you something different every week. That sounds pretty hard, though. That sounds like hard work.
Yeah, well, you definitely threw me a curveball there. You definitely surprised me.
That's good. That's always the goal. And actually, hang on. On the topic of curveballs, I realised that prior to me uploading last week's first episode, I never actually told you about the introduction little tune I made in GarageBand.
You made that tune, the cinema effect tune.
Yeah,
Oh, that's good.
I did. Did you like it?
Yeah, it was a good little bop.
Good little bop. All right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you like it because I realised I just went out on a limb and totally just made it up, and then I'm like, oh, I actually never mentioned it to you. Like, you might hate it.
Okay, I thought you might have got it from some like copyright-free site or something.
No, well, I got the sound effects from just I don't know, just royalty free shit. Yeah, but then I made the little tune in GarageBand. Not don't worry, it wasn't that hard to make. I'm no GarageBand expert, but yeah, no, I'm glad you like it because this is as much your show as it is mine. And I thought, well, I just went out on a limb and created like a pretty substantial part of the show. So I'm glad you like it. All right, so I guess I should introduce it. So this is Cinema Effect, the podcast where we review and talk about a different movie every single week, among other fun stuff. The show posts every Monday, and you can find us on YouTube, on the Apple Podcasts now, which is really exciting. It took all bloody week for me to get that one working, but it's finally working, and the link's in the YouTube description, as well as Spotify. So feel free to check us out wherever you like. Please subscribe on all those things if you enjoy the show, and leave us a rating. You know, helps with the algorithms, I think, helps new people find the show, discover this goodness. And it would be awesome if you wanted to submit any questions, any other nonsense to the show, any feedback, or even reviews of the next movies we do. We're going to start announcing the movies that we do next week. I should say the movie we do next week. So if you want to watch it in time with us and then submit a review, I'll totally read it on the show. Anything you write in, I'll read it on the show. So feel free to do that. And we appreciate, I know we've had a lot of friends and people we know check out the show over the last week, and we really appreciate all the kind words, all the nice comments there. I mean, I certainly appreciate it. I assume you appreciate it too, Liam?
Yeah, it was surprising to see how many people showed their support. So, thank you.
All right, before we get into anything else, okay, I want to address two things, okay? Now, friend of the show, Charlie Scanlon, of course, who's listening to this, obviously a great fan of the show, and I'm just giving him a shout out because we're now huge internet celebrities, of course. And via the Snapchat messengers, which is how all the kids communicate these days, he raised an interesting dilemma last week, and I want to bring it up on the show. I promised him I'd bring him up on the show because I think it's very relevant. Now, something that I feel millions of people across the world have been quite confused about for many, many a year is how does one pronounce Cillian Murphy's name? Is this something that you struggle
I
with?
think you just did it perfectly. Cillian Murphy. That's it. That's it, isn't it?
I think so. Now, I've always thought that. But, there's still some debate. Is it Cillian? Okay, is it some weird demented pronunciation? Now, Charlie messaged this to me about how you meant to pronounce it. So that means I guess we said it on the show last week at some point. When would we have said it on the show? I don't know.
When I was talking about 28 Days Later at the end, I talked about Cillian Murphy being in it.
That's right. Okay, makes perfect sense. Yeah, all right. Well, there you go. So you mentioned Cillian Murphy. Charlie's coming out here saying, nah, mate, it's Cillian. And I'm like, yeah, nah. So I did something that was, groundbreaking. No one's ever done it before for some reason. And I Googled how you meant to pronounce his name. And I must say the results are shocking, okay? You say it Cillian, okay? It's Cillian.
It's Cillian. Yep.
It's Cillian. 100% confirmed. I don't want to hear a single soul on this planet pronounce it Cillian ever again
Jesus.
after this.
Cillian.
I'm putting it out there. I'm putting it out there, okay? There's no excuses anymore. Everyone knows. It's on Google.
Yeah.
The other thing, oh god, this may as well be longer than the discussion at this point, but I feel like this show, in some capacity, may be turning into, of course, inadvertently be turning into some kind of, I guess, collection or diary of the pandemic that is sweeping the world.
Mm.
Even though this is meant to be, a relaxing movie show, I feel like at this point, we're just documenting the disintegration of the society at this point. So, you're the one who's actually meant to be going outside and actually doing shit in life, Liam. So, I'm not used to that kind of thing. So, feel free to tell me what's this week been like for you with all the university stuff.
So all my university classes are pretty much online now, and
Mm-hmm.
well, at the start of the week, there was only a few here and there, but as the week went on, more and more just sort of made the switch, and I guess they did it ahead of the university's choice. You know, the whole uni hasn't gone online yet, so it's been interesting to see
Right.
individual like tutors and lecturers make the decision for themselves to protect
Mm.
their own health and safety and stuff like that. But
Stop seeing any of their students.
yeah. But no, it's just been weird, really. It's just been like, they're just. I mean, it feels kind of like there's just going to be another long holiday, or there'll be still be a lot to do online, I guess. So yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah. So, did you go in this week or?
No, because no, I didn't go in this week.
Nice self isolation.
Yeah, is the noble purpose of self isolation.
Of
Yes.
course. I feel like personally, my instinct with this whole situation is to constantly crack jokes about it and to make fun of it. But I feel like it's increasingly every day getting so serious that I kind of have got to stop doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
At one point, it'll be too serious to make lighthearted jokes about.
Zach, 10 million people have died. Oh shit! Is this the point I stop now? Or all right, this week, and like I mentioned, we'll continue from this point forward, actually announcing the next week's film at the end of the episode, along with the other end segments. So you can find all that in the timestamps in the YouTube description. Um, but yeah, obviously we didn't tell anyone what this week's film was going to be prior. And this week, as you can tell, we're doing Casino Royale. And let's get into the IMDb data dump, as you've dubbed it last week, which is a much better name than info dump, as we
Mm.
discovered. So naturally, with the data dump, it's time for me to botch everyone's name. So first of all, this isn't part of the traditional kind of reading out of information, but this film is based on Ian Fleming's first James Bond novel. And the thing that I find interesting about this was it obviously very much ties into the decision to make Casino Royale a reboot of the franchise, but also, I don't know about you, I'd always seen on IMDb that there was another Casino Royale movie made in the 60s, and I thought, wait, what? Is this like a remake of that movie? I don't know what's going on. Had you seen that before?
No, but it's a parody, right? Or a satire?
Yes. Yes, it is. And I didn't, yeah, I looked that up last night. I had no idea that was the case, but it is. It's a spoof of James Bond, which is isn't it funny how in the 1960s they were already making spoof feature length films of the James Bond franchise, which is still, a franchise that's still relevant in 2020.
Yeah, that is funny.
So Casino Royale opened in the UK because, of course, I'm not gonna say US this time. It's the UK home of Bond on the 16th of November 2006, and it was directed by Martin Campbell, who directed Goldeneye. So another James Bond film. Is that do you know anything about like these older James Bond films? Is that one well regarded or?
I think I've seen Goldeneye. Um, it's probably up there amongst the older Bond films, I think.
Ah, okay, because that's Pierce Brosnan, right?
Yeah, yeah.
this dude Martin Campbell, of course, directed Green Lantern.
Yeah.
uh, well, I only know that movie by reputation, really. Maybe we'll get to it one day. Hopefully not. Now, with the data dump, I've kind of tried to only mention and bring up names that I feel we can that there's something to say for, you know? And this is why I've brought up the writers, who are Neil Purvis and Robert Wade. I've decided to mention them because, interestingly, now, I don't know how relevant this is to this discussion necessarily, but these two, they are a consistent writing team, and they've worked on every single Daniel Craig James Bond movie in a writing capacity. And that interested me because to learn that there was a consistent writing staff across all those films, because I feel that as the Daniel Craig saga, if you will, goes on, a lot of the ideas become super kind of jumbled, and you get the impression like new writers are coming in and not understanding the previous material. So I don't know, I found that kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, I think there's kind of a big quality difference between the four Daniel Craig films. So I also saw that and thought
Yeah.
it's very weird that there's the same three writers there. There is another writer, I think.
Yeah, I think there is two. I just brought them up because they're, I believe, the two consistent across the board, all five now.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Oh yeah, No
yeah,
Time to
yeah.
Die.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's yeah. I'm absolutely. Your thought process was the same as mine there. I thought it was kind of weird. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Not necessarily relevant to this film. It stars Daniel Craig, Eva Green, Mads Mikkelsen, and Judi Dench, and I'm sure we'll get into all of these wonderful actors and their roles in this movie. Um, The film had a budget of $150 million and a worldwide box office of $617 million. So, very much successful there at the box office.
Yeah. Now, before we start,
Mm-hmm.
I think you should kick us off on this one because I know you obviously really like this film, and
Yes.
so how about you go first?
Well, hold your horses. I'm not done with the data dump yet.
Oh, you're
Holy
not? I thought
shit.
budget was last.
Nah, hang on. We got a runtime. Let me get through it here. We got a runtime of 2 hours and 24 minutes, and the synopsis, of course, as we normally end off on. Come on, mate, get your shit
All
together.
right.
The synopsis is: after earning double O status and a license to kill, secret agent James Bond sets out on his first mission. First mission as 007, Bond must defeat a private banking. Oh my god, I can't. Holy shit! When I'm under pressure to read, dude, it just all falls apart. A private banker funding terrorists in a high stakes game of poker at Casino Royale. Thank you, I got it. All right, that's the synopsis, and I'm more than happy, as you suggested, to kick it off with the general feelings.
Mm.
Even before that, I feel like it could be a cool place to kind of mention our place and our understanding history, to provide context on how we feel about the franchise, about James Bond as a whole. And for me, like, I really don't give a shit about any James Bond movies outside of Daniel Craig. I want to say I've seen like a fair few of the other ones, a fair few of the older ones. I don't know if I could tell you which ones I've seen, but I want to say I've seen like five of the others maybe, and clips of more. And I don't know, they're just kind of, obviously they're a product of their time, and I respect that. I've never really enjoyed them, found them obviously to be quite cheesy in places, as exceedingly got the case when you got into the later Pierce Brosnan movies. Who the last Brosnan? Oh my god, holy shit! The last dude, how do you Pierce Brosnan? It's kind of a weird name though, right?
Yeah,
Give me some slack.
give some slack.
It's a
It's
weird
a weird
name.
name. Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan. Anyway, his last film, Die Another Day, in 2002, so only 4 years before this movie. And as far as I understand, and I've seen clips of that movie, like, shit just went bonkers on the Bond franchise. I believe, is that the one where there's like sharks chasing him or some shit?
Um, I'm not sure if it's that one, but there's like a weird CGI invisible car in one of them as well. So yeah, it gets pretty
Yeah,
weird near the end of the Brosnan series.
yeah. Things got wild. Um, yeah. So I've never really enjoyed James Bond as a character, as a franchise. They're kind of always been to me, looking back, and obviously I understand it's hard to look back from the modern perspective, but they look like the bottom of the barrel generic kind of just you know blockbuster movie, I guess. And then I love the Daniel Craig films. Oh, not all of them, but in general, I respect the Daniel Craig films, and I view James Bond, the franchise, really just from the lens of these movies only. I don't really look at anything else. And these movies, and obviously kicking off with this one being the first of them, really took a lot of inspiration, I guess, from what was happening in Hollywood at the time and what was happening with other huge franchises. Because around this time, 2006, right, we had Batman Begins, coming off of Batman and Robin, Christopher Nolan's grounded reboot of that character. We had Mission Impossible 3, again, after Mission Impossible 2, Tom Cruise coming in, rebooting to kind of a soft reboot of that franchise. And then obviously other spy films at the time, like, the Bourne series as well. So this film, as a reboot, um, in general, as a film in Hollywood, but also as a spy thriller in its own genre, as an action flick, takes kind of a lot, I think, from everything else that was going on at the time with this desire to reboot these big franchises, make them really grounded. Um, so that's why I like this movie as a concept, as an idea, and I feel that the movie is executed this vision, I suppose, so well. I really love this movie. I've loved this movie. I would say, I saw it quite some years ago, but I want to say I've loved this movie for 2 years or so, ever since I rewatched it numerous times. And I rewatched it last a week ago, and that's when I'm judging this viewing off. And I absolutely love this movie. I absolutely love it. So, what about your history with the Bond franchise?
Well, I love Skyfall.
Right.
That's my history with the Bond. Like honestly, yeah, I feel the same about you with the pre Daniel Craig films. They're just average spy films for me, and I think Daniel Craig is definitely the best Bond, I guess, the most interesting Bond.
By
I don't
far,
know,
right?
yeah, he just has a different kind of I don't know, different touch to him, I guess. And
Hmm.
on that, you really love Daniel Craig's Bond. And Casino Royale can be kind of seen as an origin story of this character.
Hmm.
Would you say part of your kind of love for this movie comes from the the kind of the origin of a character which you really love, like how he's kind of defined in this movie?
Absolutely. And well, the interesting thing about that is what you just said is that I don't love this character. Prior to this movie, it's not like if I was an actual hardcore James Bond fan in 2006 and I saw this movie, I would think this is the pinnacle of filmmaking. This is like holy shit, how can anyone top this? You know what I mean? Like I can't imagine what this would be like for a Bond fan. Okay, um, and I don't know a lot of Bond fans' perspective. Maybe they don't like this movie. I've got honestly no idea, but from my own brain, I feel like if I were a Bond fan, an actual Bond fan, I would think this movie was the best shit ever. And I still think it's the best shit ever. And because this is a character I don't love, I've got no um, prior, real knowledge or appreciation for the series, like I mentioned, for the character. But it's how this film, and we'll definitely talk about it a lot, but how this film really tries so hard and succeeds, and the fact that they made the effort at all to take this character that everyone knows, he's part of pop culture. Everyone knows James Bond, right? And who's just typically kind of like a cheesy action icon. And to actually have the balls to define him, define his journey, give him an arc. And I don't know, I just think that by itself is really impressive. And then that from there just kind of sets it along for the rest of the for the Daniel Craig movies as, yeah, dude, this is a great interpretation of Bond. And I don't love all the movies, but yeah, no, that's yeah, you're right. So the character in that sense and the decision to reboot it is at the core of why I love this movie. Yeah.
Okay. Um. Well, I'm not gonna say I love this movie. I like it.
Hmm.
I think it has a lot of good elements, but there's just not enough there for me to think that it's great or amazing, I guess. But I don't know. I'm curious to see whether you just love things that I like in the movie, or if there's things
Mm.
altogether that you see it in it that I don't. So
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. That's always um something fun to think about when you're debating a movie with someone that has a different perspective. That's true. I think, and obviously we'll find out very soon, but I feel like it might be a combination of both
yeah,
to an
yeah,
extent. Um, so yeah, let's kind of start. I think with, I mean, we kind of already talked about it, but let's quickly mention, right, the context at the time in which Daniel Craig was cast as Bond, and it's kind of a well-known internet fact that everyone hated it at the time when they announced Daniel Craig is playing Bond. Everyone carries on like, holy shit, dude, this isn't Bond. Why is he blonde? All this other bullshit, right? And I just find that so funny because I think it's, would you say it's kind of the number one example that I feel like a lot of people jump to and think about when we decide not to judge casting calls too early?
yeah. I mean, it's an excellent example of that. Yeah,
Because we still see today so many people, you know, jump down the throat of whoever for getting cast as something, which which is actually funny because later on after this movie, when we get to the news, I'm going to do exactly that for a certain piece of news. So that's pretty funny. So I'm basically being a huge hypocrite. But anyway, um, yeah, I think it's so funny how much shit everyone ate who thought that this was a bad call, you know,
mm,
because God, it's such a good call. And again, no much, not much knowledge of the character prior, but my understanding from my research of what Ian Fleming's novels are and what the character is meant to be is that Bond is always meant to be this kind of like this cold-hearted prick who, you know, isn't emotionally void, but has just who kind of just works to get the job done. And I feel like Daniel Craig just is the first person to really get that, you know. And I know he read all the novels prior to working on this movie, so I kind of feel that, you know,
yeah,
I get that vibe from him that he understands the character on a deeper level.
yeah. The other ones just seem like they're going too much for the to try and be suave and that
Yeah,
kind of Bond. This Bond's much more cold and pragmatic. Yeah,
absolutely. Tying in with what I just said, here's a bit of trivia for you. Daniel Craig actually rejected the part of James Bond a year before, as he had felt that the franchise had settled into a standard formula, just basically what we just said. He changed his mind when he read the finished script, and boy, I don't blame him. Um, I can totally see how he changed that mind. Because, dude, when he was offered the role, he was probably thinking to himself, "Oh, great, I'm gonna, you know, go to space and I'm gonna be flying around
yeah.
torpedoes and all this shit." So, you totally get where the change of mind on his part there came from. I mean, let's dive into the elements. Like you said, we want to figure out what we like, what we don't like about the film. Do you want to start here about any element, aspect of the film in particular that stands out to you as a positive or a negative?
I don't know. I think the story is good. I think there's a lot of just good things in it. I just don't see. I don't know. Maybe you should start here.
Okay, okay. Are you going back to the general thoughts and feelings thing? Are you kind of more on the side of it's good? I don't really see what's amazing about it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Okay, no, that's fair enough. And honestly, I feel like, you know, I'm going to get into the aspects I like for sure, but I feel like all of them are just good things. I feel like in any other movie, they are just like 7, 8 out of 10 things. But it is everything we've just talked about the history of the character, the context in which the writers made the decision to reboot the character, the context and the situation that they were in to make these decisions in the script. I think all those things elevate the material that is there, that is just good, you know. So I feel like that's going to be a common thread that exists in this discussion here. But all right, well, if we don't know where to start, let's start off at the start of the film. And the first scene,
yeah,
um, I love it, and it sets the tone, I think, for this entire reinvention of Bond as we see him get his double O status, um, which they explain. I don't know if this is a thing in James Bond like lore, if you will. I don't know if this movie made it up. I've got no clue. But the fact that he needs 2 confirmed kills to get his double O status, I think it's pretty cool. And this opening scene, it's kind of like a common thing. I think it's like a what would you call it? I guess it's like a staple of the
Yeah,
franchise to have this opening pre-credit scene that kind of establishes the tone of the movie. And this one just has this awesome, unique feel with the black and white, the crazy film grain. I love it, and just this brutal, brutal fight with this contact dude, and then him spinning around into the iconic gun barrel pose. I don't know. I just think it's awesome, man. Like I don't feel like any of this. All of this felt like a lot of thought was put into it, and it wasn't lazy. Like, oh, okay, shit, we got to have the gun barrel thing. Let's just do that. And then like that, I felt like everyone involved really wanted to challenge themselves to do something creative with this sequence.
yeah. I think the choice of having I think of the choice of having the pre title sequence black and white and then transitioning into the really colorful opening is kind of maybe they're saying something about giving Bond new life. I mean, you could just read it as the him getting 007 status, but it's also sort of this new Bond coming to life, him resurrecting.
Yeah, well, yeah, literally within the film, it's well, not literally, but like within the events chronologically of the film, it's him being born. But then, yeah, you're absolutely right in the sense of the viewer knowing the history of Bond. It does feel like a rebirth in that sense, absolutely. And we get our first kind of taste, I guess, of just I just find the dialogue in this film so witty, so fun. We get our first taste of it here with this, with this MI6 dude who's like a traitor apparently, and he's kind of being a prick to Bond, and then Bond just pops him and then says considerably because he goes for the gun. I don't know. I get that. The dialogue I just find so enjoyable in this movie, so snappy, and Daniel Craig delivers it so well.
Dialogue is one of the stronger parts of the movie. However, I think there are still parts of the old Bond that come into the dialogue, especially with the love interests, the kind of the cheesy Bond aspects. I feel like they kind of seep into the movie a little bit, but yeah,
Do you reckon?
yeah. Like I don't know. What did you think of the love relationships, the love interests in this movie?
I thought they were handled the best that they can ever possibly be handled. To be perfectly honest, I don't know. I can't foresee any future where a Bond film does it better. And I mean, I will say, I will say, a super weird moment in the movie that's like, what the hell is happening? Is when the first chick that he's trying to, I don't know, what's her character's name? I got no idea, but the first chick that he tries to kind of seduce into getting the information from Demetrius, right? Like, why does she ride it on a horse? What is that about?
Mm.
This white horse on the beach? It's kind of silly. But no, I love how he very much just uses her. He has clearly no real affection at all. He's super cold. He basically, he's witty to her in the car when they meet, and then, he cracks his little jokes, and she's like all charmed and shit. And then, you know, he starts making out with her on the ground, and then he gets the information he wants. And I love when he calls room service and he just says, "Nah, man, just bring the drinks for one," and he's out. He's like, "Nah, screw this." He's just got no interest in messing about. He got the info he wants, and he pisses off.
I think so. What do you see as his kind of arc in this movie? Because to me, at least, I don't really see much of an arc. Like I think he's
Really?
kind of cold the whole way through. I don't really see the change.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. That's a key character trait. That's like I don't see the coldness. The coldness never goes away. I don't think. Um, no, but his arc, I see it. It's about how he handles his line of work and his emotional response to it. Um, in the sense of obviously the emotional capacity of letting someone in. That I mean, Eva Green is key to the arc. That's like she's basically the catalyst for it, for everything that happens. So his decision to fall in love with her, and we'll get we'll get into this more, but and how that all transpires and how it all turns out for him. Basically, his decision to fall in love with her, and then he's stabbed in the back. It bites him in the ass.
Yeah.
The fact that he trusted someone, he let someone into his life, it kind of kills any part of him. Well, I shouldn't say that. I feel like it's kind of, I shouldn't say that like in future films he's got no emotion at all, but it kind of kills that part of him, that desire for him, that more childish aspect that wants him to, to love, I guess, or to have family, because he is an orphan, as she discovers.
Yeah. But like, so that kind of closes him up, I guess. Makes him, you
Yeah.
would say it makes him cold, but my problem with it is that he's cold from the start, you know.
Well, I don't know about that. Like, yes, you're absolutely right. He's cold from the start, but I think that's kind of conflating two things. I don't think that the fact that Eva Green stabs him in the back, I don't think that's a something that automatically, has to make him more cold or less cold, or like I feel like his coldness is just a key. Is like a, I don't want to call it a mask. It's like it's something that he constantly um exhibits right throughout the film, and that's kind of the core of the character. But then it's when he starts to fall in love with her that it starts to kind of go away a little bit. As he's letting her in, he becomes more warm, and then it's like that shit is cut off real fast. So I don't think it's an the arc is. I feel like maybe you're looking at the arc as something that's about a key character trait of his changing, as something about his personality changing. I don't really see it about that. It's more to do with the lessons he learned, as opposed to just he goes from less cold to more cold or whatever. He's cold, full stop.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, an arc usually involves some kind of change from A to B, even if it's a a moral lesson that he's learned. So, like, what does this teach him?
Teaches him not to be reckless, not to trust, you know, kind of all the I guess kind of the typical spy lessons like you'd hope any international super secret spy already knows. But it's about those things. We know in the film that Eva Green constantly calls him out and challenges him for being egotistical, for putting everyone at risk, for being reckless. He's kind of reckless, dude. Like
Yeah,
he does, and that I think that goes away. I don't think he's reckless at the end of this movie. I don't think there's that I guess kind of teenage, I guess, angst to his personality, to his approach, to his job that he loses.
I mean, I think so. Okay, at the start of this movie, there's the his choice to run after the guy or get in the big claw vehicle, and I
Sure.
think the filmmakers are kind of, or the writers are presenting this choice as, he's making the reckless choice. He's at this point in his character arc or whatever. But
Yep.
like literally in the Skyfall, there's a scene where he's using the same thing.
Oh,
So it's like it's literally visually contradicting it.
absolutely, 100%. And oh, God, we can go into the future of this series, but no, absolutely. I feel like you've got to look at it self-contained in this movie. I feel like once if you're looking at this, looking at Skyfall and God Spectre with this, um, then everything you're saying is absolutely right. There's no arc, dude. The arc is destroyed in the future movies. Um, you are so right about that, and that's where the decision to mention for me to mention the consistent writing team in the data dump. That's where that came from, because it's so interesting. It's so bizarre. Um, but no, dude, you're absolutely right. The Skyfall shit and much more shit. That so many ideas, not only with Bond but with the whole setting and context and the groups involved in this world get so muddled with in future films. But I think self-contained and even leading into Quantum of Solace, which I won't talk about, but the arc works in this movie and in the next movie.
Well, can you talk about that, the Quantum of Solace? I haven't seen that in a while, I guess.
I've actually got it here at the end for when I things I've watched recently.
Okay.
And in that I'll take you. I'll tell you very briefly about what the movie's actually like. But yeah, no, that's a good point. For his arc in Quantum of Solace, it's basically about him getting over Vesper, right? It's he's still reckless in Quantum of Solace, by the way. At the end of this movie, the recklessness isn't gone 100%, and I don't think they ever imply it's 100% gone. But the part he has changed in that way a little bit, and Quantum of Solace, he he's less reckless in his approach. I think in Quantum of Solace he's smarter about the way he does things. And I think that's an interesting lesson learned. I don't think in Quantum of Solace there's any moment where he jumps in the big, what was it, like that machine thing you mentioned at the start at the embassy or whatever it was.
The like claw thing, whatever.
Yeah, the claw thing. Yeah, whatever. There's no like moment like that in Quantum of Solace. He doesn't do any crazy shit like that. That's like what, like just legit, just like putting civilians at risk like that, and compromising the mission. But he does. He is motivated by rage as a result of this movie and what happens at the end of this movie. Yeah, it's he's still reckless in Quantum of Solace in a different way. He kind of continues to just kill people. Quantum of Solace kind of interestingly touches on more ideas around uh, how he handles his job in relation to the license to kill aspect of it, which is kind of weird. Um, it's less about, he doesn't really use brute force in Quantum of Solace that much from memory. He just kind of, yeah, I don't know. He's reckless with the way in which he just kind of pops people. He just kills people
Mm.
when he shouldn't and all that shit. But anyway, yeah, the Quantum of Solace, it kind of continues in an interesting way and completes the arc with the last scene in that movie, which is really, really cool. But yeah, no, I think the arc in this movie, it's not a complete arc. I think Quantum of Solace kind of represents the last 25% of his arc, and this movie's like 75% of it. Quantum of Solace generally feels like an epilogue to this movie, and that is reflected in his arc. Um, but yeah, so okay, so you seem to you were considering Skyfall when you were deliberating his journey. Um,
Yeah.
how do you feel about it? Kind of looking at it only from the perspective of this movie alone, because you hadn't seen Quantum of Solace, like you mentioned.
Well, like for me, if so, you're saying he has an incomplete character arc, and then his character arc is contradicted in later films. Like that's a big problem for me. That makes me, discredit the kind of character arc in it in Casino Royale.
Why is that? I don't really get that.
Well, like I mean, it's kind of because he's a continuing character. Like you're supposed to think of him as the same person, and that doesn't really
Oh, of course,
work.
absolutely, but that's a problem with Skyfall, dude. That's not a problem with this movie.
Yeah, but like his arc in this movie is incomplete in the first place, like you said.
Yeah, but it's only incomplete because Quantum of Solace exists. You know what I mean? I feel like if this were the only Daniel Craig James Bond movie that ever existed, this movie has an arc. You know, it only it only continues through Quantum of Solace. I don't feel, and maybe you disagree with me. I don't feel at the end of this movie I'm like, oh shit, the arc was incomplete. Like I feel like it only is incomplete because of the knowledge of the later films.
Why don't we talk about Lashif? Because
Oh hell yeah,
Lashif is good in this movie. I like him.
absolutely. So yo, your boy, or I don't know, our boy, whoever. I just feel like I need to call anyone I like my boy or your boy or whatever. Mads Mikkelsen as Lashif, so good in this movie, and I really love the character and how they've given these kind of menacing physical characteristics that you expect from a Bond villain. He's got the messed up eye, he
Mm,
bleeds the tears, and he bleeds the blood, I should say.
yeah.
Oh my god, he cries the blood. I was getting
Oh yeah.
all my terminology all jumbled up there, as you could hear.
Cries tears of blood.
That's exactly what he does, and he's got the scar and everything. And I just love those physical characteristics, how they're more traditional to the Bond villain, but how he's not a Bond villain. He's just a dude. He's just a banker. Like he's just this. He's just literally like an accountant
Yeah.
who's just working for this organization, and he's just kind of put in a corner where he's like, oh shit, and then he has to like do this crazy shit to Bond as a result of that.
Yeah. Well, to me, I really like his realistic kind of personality in this. He feels like a real person. But like I don't like those other elements like the blood, tears, in his eye.
Really?
Well, it's like why have the cheesy Bond villain elements when you can, you've shown how effective and good just having a villain who feels realistic is. It doesn't feel, you know, I don't know why you should have those other elements.
Do you find the bleeding um when crying thing and the eye thing? What do you find that cheesy?
I mean, yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's from the Ian Fleming original novel, and he those are where all the cheesy Bond villains are. So,
Yeah, yeah, but I don't think that makes those traits themselves cheesy.
but that's where they originate. So
They originate from cheesy material.
well, like the villains in that, you know, like he like Lashif is one of those um like villains like in the original
Yeah,
from the originals. So he does. I mean, by virtue of him being that, he kind of has to have these. You kind of have to call them cheesy.
that's a weird argument. I don't why.
It's coming from the same place. Like he literally is, by his definition, one of those old Bond villains with those with the cheesy elements I'm talking about.
But it's hang on, no, but like it's just the physical elements though. Like we know we just discussed as a character that he's far from cheesy. He's super
Yeah,
realistic.
sorry, I'm talking about the physical elements.
Yeah, but like I don't get why are they cheesy by themselves.
Well, I personally find like blood tearing from the eye just cheesy.
Just because they come from because they're
Okay,
characteristics that come from those
I
material
shouldn't say
that
that. I
material.
shouldn't say that. I'll just say that I think that it's cheesy, like by itself.
Okay, you just find the concept cheesy.
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of a I think it's just kind of an extra visual element that's engaging. It's certainly intimidating, and sure, I mean it's
But
not realistic,
it's
but
just not intimidating for me. Like it just takes me out of a realistic, like good character. It's kind of like these two sides that are complete opposites, and they kind of interfere with each other. It's like you've got this good, realistic Bond villain who has his own problems and needs to get the money for people who are more dangerous than he is. But at the same time, you've just got these ridiculous, elements, like the physical elements from the original Bond that's just like kind of interfering with it.
no, I get you. I get you. I don't know. I definitely disagree with it. I would agree with you if those elements were dialogue, if those elements were um, within the script itself and more story oriented. I would agree with you. Like if he comes out and says some weird shit, some weird like cheesy ass 60s dialogue, I'd be with you 100%. That would totally kill it. But I don't know. I feel like it's just a physical feature. It's kind of no harm. It's just kind of cool design. It makes him more iconic as opposed to just some random dude. I don't know. I like it, but I get what you're saying now. You justified it well. But then on the topic of Lashif, I love Lashif in this movie and basically all of it. And I want to actually go through Lashif's plan in this movie. Okay, so it's something that's never really explained fully. You get little snippets of dialogue here that basically, you either pick up on it or you don't. And I thought after multiple rewatches of the movie, I thought I got it pretty good, and I was like, I want to look this up to make sure I actually understand his plan and what's actually happening with all the terrorist shit in this movie. And I looked it up, and I was like 90% there. I was like pretty close.
Mm.
Do you have a? Would you say you have like a pretty good understanding of the plan, or because it
Yeah,
is kind of, yeah, okay,
yeah. I mean, he manipulates the stock market by selling weapons to terrorists and trying to blow up airplane, not airplanes, yeah, turbo. What is it called? Jumbo airplanes and stuff like that.
I always understood that part of it. I think the movie does, and I think this throughout, and especially in the poker scenes. But I think the movie does a really good job of explaining the fundamentals of what you need to know without getting too technical. And this is an example of that, where it's like you get, okay, manipulating stock market, wants to crash the plane, wants to blow up the plane or whatever to get it in his way so he earns money. You kind of get that, right? But the thing that always messed me up was that I didn't quite understand, and obviously it's not relevant to the movie. I think it's kind of just fun though, that the technical aspect of the plan itself, I didn't never quite understood how the manipulation of the stock market actually worked. And I've got it here.
Oh,
Okay, I just want to read it because it confused me when I actually tried to really think about it.
well, I could just explain it if you want. I mean,
Go for it.
also like, so he'll have a stock like it'll be like the airplane company or something, and he'll short the stock or he'll buy puts where he's basically he's basically saying that the stock price will go down, and if he does, he earns money from it. Or if it goes below a certain point, that's what a put is.
Are you saying at the point in which he is has the stock and tries to crash the price? Obviously, are you suggesting he has owned the stock at this
Oh
point?
no, you can sell a stock without owning it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. See, that's yeah. That's what I've got here. That's the part that confused me. I was like, he's like saying sell the stock, and I was confused because he doesn't have the stock, but I didn't understand that as a
Yeah,
concept.
it's just called shorting. So it's the same as so when you long a stock, you buy it and you're saying it's going to go up, and if you do, you get money. And shorting is just the opposite. You're quote unquote selling a stock. So you say so if it goes down, you're shorting it and you're saying it's going to get money.
Perfect. Okay, that's great. Yeah, that's the kind of the element I never quite got is how you can sell stock without owning it. But thank you. There you go. Well, there you go. Finance with cinema effect right there. We need to have a weekly segment on that. So, have you got anything else to talk about with the chief right now? I know we'll obviously probably mention him in certain scenes. Any scenes that you liked with him in particular?
I like the torture scene with him. That's good.
Oh, good choice. Good choice. Well, I would have taken the opportunity there to transition to poker, but instead I can't go past the torture scene, and especially leading into it, I love the moment when Bond goes chasing after Vespa, who's been quote unquote kidnapped, um, and how they leave her in the middle of the road as a tactic, and then he has to just flip the car. I love that so much.
Yeah.
It's so creative. Like I haven't seen anything like that in an action film. But that's the part where you traditionally think, okay, here comes the car chase. Instead, it's just like, oh shit, no, he just drives down the road and then he has to flip the car immediately.
What did you think of Vespa in this movie?
She's great. You know, she's got a great. Eva Green plays her really well. Eva Green is gorgeous in this movie, and just the way that their chemistry, both Daniel Craig and Eva Green, the way they play off each other. Obviously, I know people often talk about the scene where they meet on the train. That's a fantastic example where she kind of tries to challenge him and his traits, and then that continues throughout. No, I love her in this movie. What about you?
Yeah, I like it too. She's I like it. I don't know. I like how she's kind of closed off for the whole movie, and at the end you kind of
Mhm.
realize why. I like that part of her. But apart
Yeah.
from that, she's just okay.
Okay. Okay. I love when damn it, we're getting away from the torture scene. I need to get back to it. But I love when, obviously the shower moment, after she's confronted with Bond's, pretty brutal killing, and then she sits in the shower, um, with all the clothes on. And it's kind of a common known trivia point. I don't know if you know this, but I'll say it anyway. In the shower scene, Vespa was originally scripted to be wearing nothing but her underwear. Daniel Craig argued that Vespa would not have stopped to have taken her clothes off, and the scene was changed. Makes perfect sense. That's a great change.
Yeah. But why is she traumatized in that scene? Because shouldn't she be like? Doesn't she have? Isn't her actual boyfriend in the quantum group or whatever?
Yeah, sure. Well, to explain it, I'll get into Quantum of Solace. Fine. So basically, the whole thing is when Quantum of Solace is added to the picture and you figure the whole thing out. Essentially, what's happened is that her boyfriend person is a mentor, is like a member of Quantum, right? The
Mm.
secret organization, and but she doesn't know this. Excuse me, to her, um, he's just her boyfriend, right? And he goes missing, and then Quantum send her this like blackmails her essentially to go and do all this shit. Um, but she, as far as she's aware, her boyfriend, her regular ass boyfriend, has been kidnapped. Um,
Okay.
so in that, she's just a banker. She's literally just an accountant person.
Yeah, but like she works for. Does she not work for MI6 or she just provides the money?
No, no, she represented the treasury.
Okay. So she just gives money to random people, like MI6 or not, or just MI6.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, she's obviously just like some kind of. She's got seems to have a decent job at the Treasury, and she was sent on this mission. Whether or not she's dealt with MI6 before, I've got no clue. Possibly, maybe not. Torture scene. Okay, we can't get away from it. Okay, because it's just a great. It's just a killer scene, dude. It's so good. Um, how it's not an elaborate torture that we'd expect from the James Bond of old. It's not some kind of laser pointer bullshit. It's just literally Bond is naked in a chair, and Lashif is just smacking him in the dick, smacking him in the balls, man.
Mm, yeah, it's great.
It's brutal. Holy shit. And Daniel Craig is he's just so good in that scene. He's like just screaming, and then like ask, and then when he tells Lashif like he's got an itch down there, and he smacks him again and again. Holy shit. It's just so great. It's such a memorable scene to me, dude. Like when you size it up against other action films in general, other spy films, um, it just stands out as such a memorable scene to me, like compared to so many other sequences in so many other movies.
Yeah, it's good too.
Is this going to be like the narrative for this whole thing?
How about we talk about Skyfall a little bit? Do you want to talk about
Oh
Skyfall?
Jesus!
No,
Do we want to talk about Skyfall?
I feel like okay. I don't like many action movies. I don't think. Like I don't think I'm a big action person. But
No.
Skyfall is kind of a what would you call it? Like a template for me. Like of like what a good action movie is to me. I guess because there aren't many that I like, but I like Skyfall. Well, like okay, so to me, like when I think of Skyfall, I think of a certain mood, right? Like the tone. And
Mm-hmm.
so you mentioned last week, like the script is the core of a good movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Casino Royale and Skyfall both have both have a good script and stuff like that. But like to me, Skyfall is just much more like expressive film. Like there's a lot more locations and colors and settings and stuff like that. Whereas Casino Royale is just kind of Europe, you know. It doesn't have a unique feel to me like Skyfall or Mad Max Fury Road, like certain good action movies do.
Okay.
So
So are you talking like when you say that? Are you talking literally just aesthetically, or does it go deeper?
yeah, I guess so. They have yeah. Aesthetically, to me,
Okay.
this movie isn't very interesting, so it doesn't really get me engaged. I guess.
I don't know. Obviously, aesthetics help. But I think this movie. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's as visually striking, setting wise, as Skyfall is, especially the final, the third act of Skyfall. But I don't know. I think this movie, and this is a good transition to the action in general that you've given us here. I think this movie's action is so good, and not all of it. Like I don't love the I don't love the final Venice shootout. Like, I think it's good. I think it's fine, but it kind of stands out as being like a totally acceptable shootout that would normally be in the middle of any other movie, and it kind of ends this movie, and it feels a bit anticlimactic in that way. Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
So, but the other action, on the other hand, though, the airport, like the airport isn't nearly as visually striking in Miami as these other movies you're talking about, but it has a unique feel. It's a unique location, and I love the sequence. The shot that always stands out to me in this sequence is when like Daniel Craig does like the flip thing into the window of the car. It's so cool. Just the choreography across the board, I
yeah.
just find so enjoyable.
Well, okay. My problem isn't that it's not visually striking. Like I don't really care if something's visually striking or not. It's more to me
Okay.
like so in a movie you have the script, as you mentioned, kind of the core, kind of what determines if it's good or bad. But like to me, movies are primarily about communicating a certain tone or feeling or something, and that is communicated no matter how big or small through music and cinematography and stuff like that. So like last week we talked about Collateral, and that's not the most visually striking movie of all time. You know, you wouldn't say like, but it
No.
still has its own unique kind of feel, tone that is communicated, transmitted into the viewer from the screen. And I feel like Casino Royale doesn't have that because it doesn't have a like doesn't have a feel to me because it's not any specific. I don't know. It's just mainly it just mainly shows us Europe and doesn't go for any tone or texture.
Yeah, uh, I don't know. I feel like it has the tone and texture, just not necessarily uh, via the settings, the locales. You know, I don't know. I feel like it has it in the character development. I feel like it has it. Um, I think in large part, and maybe I guess it could be argued this is a con. I don't know. I personally definitely don't see it this way, but yeah, maybe you could say that the fact that the film can is only truly appreciated via and as a result of the context in which it was made, being the previous films in the series. But I don't know. So I feel like a lot of that feeling comes from that. Honestly, the fact that that in making this film, the filmmakers aren't just making a cool action movie; they're making something that is already something else in the minds of the viewer. And I think with that in mind, it delivers. And maybe the fact that you have to have that in mind is a bad thing, but I personally don't feel like that's a bad thing at all.
So for you, is this as good a movie like without the context? Like if you didn't know the context of the industry at the time?
No, it's definitely not as good of a movie. But the problem is though, is that you can't take that out of the equation. In my opinion, you just can't. Like, if you were to do that, you're taking out the context. Like, God, I can use the word context all day, but you take out the environment, the setting, the situation in which these filmmakers were creating this film, and that's something that's so important to film criticism. In my opinion, it's so important to appreciating film. Um, that like there's a reason, okay? There's a reason that we appreciate cool shots. That we go, wow, the cinematography there was crazy. Oh wow, do you know how they did that shot? In like we do that all the time for movies, right? And all of that is just us talking about the context in which the movie was made, how it was executed, what was going through the minds of the filmmakers, and the context of the franchise prior to Casino Royale is a huge part of that. Like if I can't use that as something to elevate my discussion, then I don't feel anyone should be able to talk about, oh, the direction there was super cool. Oh, but you can't talk about that context. Like they're both different levels of context. I don't know. I feel like they go
Yeah,
hand in hand.
but I mean, direction and cinematography is something you can directly see and feel. I feel like outside context is something you research and
Yeah.
look into, and then you put into the movie. You know, the other stuff is already there for you to experience. Like, I can't really experience the context of the movie if I'm
No.
not in that time.
You can experience cinematography. You can experience direction. You can't experience that context. You're right, but you can't do we I don't think we really appreciate cinematography. We don't really appreciate direction, etc., without understanding, or I don't want to say looking it up after, because that sounds kind of cringe, but without understanding what was going through the minds of the people. I think, for example, like 1917 is a movie I've seen and I really enjoy, and sure, I can experience the awesome cinematography, and at the time experiencing it, I thought was awesome. But a huge part of what makes that movie impressive to us is knowing what had to be technically achieved to make the shots work. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like that is a totally valid level of film criticism, and I don't feel like you can remove that aspect of it for the casino. Oh shit! Not my mic. I don't feel you can. I don't feel that you can remove that aspect of it for Casino Royale. Am I making any sense? I just went on a huge rant.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Okay. So to answer your question very briefly, yes, I don't think this movie's quite as good taking that out of mind, but I don't think you can take it out of mind. But I still, yeah, but we're transitioning into some more scenes, like taking it for a second. I'll play devil's advocate, and I'll remove that from my brain. I'll take that context away, and I still think what's left is a great movie, a great action flick. So many scenes stand out. The opening parkour scene, I could watch it once a day, 100%. It's so well shot. You can see everything that happens. For God's sake, that's like an achievement, especially compared to Quantum of Solace. Holy shit! You can see literally every movement, and the amount of information you get about where Bond is at this point in his career from the choreography, from his actions is so great. I especially love, they're climbing on the cranes and they parkour through the buildings and all that. I especially love the moment when the dude does this crazy, like, I don't even, what would you even call that? Where he like chins up like and like manages to squeeze through the hole in the kind of ceiling area.
Yeah.
That's wild. And then how Bond then just like dives through the drywall. I think that's such clever storytelling, and it works on the same level you mentioned the scoop crane thing earlier. That Bond isn't stylish, you know. He's not out to do some fancy shit. He just gets the job done. He just barges through the wall, and I think that's really, it's visually like a clever moment, but it's also really works to support his character.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Did you have anything? Did anything in particular stand out to you in this opening scene? Because another moment I really liked was just when the guy was like I guess it was his contact or whatever, his partner, was like touching
Touching
his
his
ear, and
ear.
Bond's like,
Yeah,
dude, don't touch your ear.
yeah, I was gonna say that.
That's really cool.
He also there's a in Skyfall when they're in the the Chinese play with the Komodo dragons. The
Yeah.
the Moneypenny's like touching her ear and he says the same thing. That was
Oh, that's right.
yeah.
That's right. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, yeah. Well, I will say, IMDb trivia time. The opening parkour chase took 6 weeks to film. Holy crap.
Maybe
It was worth every second of it, though.
maybe this kind of discussion of, how you kind of appreciate this movie with the context and stuff. It just kind of brings up a larger difference between you and me and how we I don't know, what we like about movies and stuff like that. Which is I don't really
Yeah.
care as much about that outside context. Even if it's for cinematography, how a shot is made, how they made 1917 or whatever. I don't really that doesn't add to my appreciation usually. I don't think about that as a factor.
But you don't think that, generally speaking, amongst film fans and film viewers, that is something that I feel like that's something the majority of people value.
Like the film is the film and the effort they put into it, I don't know. It's kind of subjective outside and external. You could say in 1917 or whatever, it took him this long to do this many cool shots with this amount of money, but it's like at the same time they've got millions of dollars in their hand as well. And it's like if you look at a smaller film, those people could be just doing just as much work and stuff like that. So
Oh, dude, I couldn't disagree more. Like, obviously, the budget indicates the scale of a film for sure, but I think just saying, oh, they've got millions of dollars, or they can chuck more money into that, or they can chuck more time into that. They're all filmmakers on any level, no matter if you're making a $1 million movie, a $300 million movie. They've got so many constraints on so many levels, whether it's finance, whether it's schedule, whether it's how long they need to make this shot, whether it's how many people they've got on set at the time, etc. there's so many things to balance, and I think that makes any kind of achievement in that way. And obviously way scenes are blocked and all that kind of shit. Like it all comes together, those constraints, to make it really meaningful. I don't think you can just say like, oh, they've got a
Yeah,
huge budget so it's not really worth it.
but filmmakers with smaller budgets have greater constraints. You know.
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't really agree. Like they've got greater financial constraints, but like, who's to say if some random director got $1 million and they're going to make this movie and they're making it with like whether it's a combination of their friends or a combination of other people, you know. I don't. These people aren't going to have the schedules that Hollywood actors have. These people aren't going to have the constraints that hiring this expensive equipment, that planning and blocking of these extensive shots is going to have. They're not going to have those problems to that extent.
Yeah, they're just gonna have more problems.
Why?
What do you mean?
Why are they going to have more problems? I think they have different problems. I don't think they have more problems.
I mean, I just feel like less money, less access. They're gonna have more problems. It's gonna be harder for them.
I don't know. I feel like that's yeah. I think that's, and obviously I'm no filmmaker. I think that's a bit of a generalization. Like obviously financial constraints are difficult. No, there's no doubt. That's 100% what I'm saying. I just think that you've got to also take into account the literally 10 to 15 to 20, however many other levels and different types of constraints that exist in creating something.
Yeah, but it feels to me like there's always gonna be more constraints for the little guy than the big guy.
But why?
Well, like just talking from a financial standpoint.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're right that there would absolutely be less financial constraints on a big budget film. I'm just
Yeah,
saying I think that then that creates more constraints.
if you have less, if you have more financial constraints, you're gonna have way more other constraints as well. That's just not like that will just happen naturally.
I disagree though. Like, look at, I know for Knives Out, this is so random, but I guess it's not. Daniel Craig ties into it. Haha, got ya. For Knives Out, I know that Ryan Johnson only managed to get Daniel Craig because of a scheduling conflict. Oh, sorry, excuse me, because Bond shooting was delayed for a little bit, right? Those kind of scheduling conflicts. That's only one other example that made that difficult. For a smaller filmmaker, I don't think the smaller filmmaker is going to have that issue of like, oh shit, we need to get this amount of shots in this amount of time because old mate needs to go and shoot James Bond. Those are constraints.
But they have less access to locations and less time as well and stuff because they have
But they don't. Why do they have less time? What?
well they have less time because they have less people working on set, less people that they're able to pay in full. People with other jobs and stuff like that. I mean, it depends on what budget we're talking about, but like how small we go. But
All I'm saying is that I feel like my only point is that I feel like it's the super just the easy answer to just say, oh, they've got more money, it's easier for them. It's just not taking into consideration other factors.
it's like probably easier for them if they have more money. Like you know,
But I just disagree. Like I don't know what else to say. Like I don't know. I don't agree with that at all.
like saying it's harder for smaller creators is a generalization, but I still think it's more true than saying it's harder for big creators
Okay.
and more
Okay.
access,
Yeah.
more people, more locations.
Yeah. Like okay. Look, yeah, I don't know. I know what else to say. I just disagree because I think then you've also got to consider the pressure that these filmmakers are under with these massive budgets, with these studio executives on their back. Like if I go and make a film tomorrow and I get some financing, like I haven't got bloody Alan Horn from Disney, on my back trying to mess with my film. That's another whole level of just creative constraints and pressure. And I'm like, I've mentioned everything else. Anyway, it's all good. How did we even get here?
Well, you were talking about like crediting filmmaking achievement out like externally to the film and stuff like that.
Oh, that's right. Jesus, wow, that got all philosophical for ages, didn't it? I've got a few more points of things I love about this movie. I love um, the opening credit motion graphics. Um, they don't hold up super well. Like they're not bad, but they're not like, oh wow, that's great. Like especially that they get so much better, and even Quantum of Solace, which was only 2 years later, has a much better graphically opening sequence. But I love the song. You Know My Name. It is by Chris Cornell. Is Chris Cornell like a famous musician? I assume he is. Have you heard of him?
I think so, Chris Cornell. Well, the
I guess
do,
he's
do
famous if
you
you're doing a Bond song.
do you like the opening song?
I love the opening song. Such a good song. And what I even love and appreciate it more about it is how the composer of this film, who I didn't mention at the start, the composer is David Arnold, and how he consistently ties the opening track, that opening Chris Cornell song, into the score of the movie. You hear it a lot, and I think it's so awesome. You know, in at the heights of the action in the movie, you hear the goddamn orchestral version of that song, and I'm like, holy shit, this is great. This is just so cool. I was like jamming out to it.
How's it go again? Can you sing it for us?
Oh, hang on. Du-du. Please never make me do that again.
Oh, I forgot all about it.
Wow.
But do you like the Skyfall, the song?
Yeah, it's great.
You do.
Yeah, awesome.
What's better for you?
I think Skyfall's a better song. I'm no music critic, but I think Skyfall's a better song. But then I have the extra level of appreciation for this song because it's also great. But then, like I said, tying into the score is awesome. I don't know if they do that in Skyfall. Do you know if they do that in Skyfall? They tie that Adele song into the score?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay. If they don't, then yeah, no, that's definitely something I like more about Casino Royale. But Skyfall, I think, is the better song. Yeah.
I don't. I don't know. I don't like the opening song for this that much. And like what tone is this song for you? It's just kind of
Well, it's
generic.
just kind of a banger. It's kind of a banger like the movie. Nah, I'm joking. You know, I mean, tone wise, I guess it is kind of generic. Like, just kind of an upbeat tune. I get that. Um, so yeah, no, that's a good point. Skyfall does tie more into the movie. That's a good point. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Well, that comes back to my Skyfall, our Skyfall discussion, where like I kind of think Skyfall presents a unique tone that's consistent across all its different like elements, and like
Mm-hmm.
the tone of a movie for me is how like film is a visual medium, right? And the tone is how that is communicated through the tone is how something, a feeling or something is communicated to from one consciousness, like the film, to the person, to another, through the music, through the cinematography, stuff like that. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I mean, I feel I could totally ask you more about Skyfall, but I need to see it again. And I mean, would you be interested in doing Skyfall soon? I feel like we've got a lot to say.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, well, with what I was saying about Skyfall, I'm just trying to illustrate um, what I think is lacking from this movie, I guess. You know, like a
Yeah.
unique tone which is communicated to the audience. I don't know what
Okay.
is the tone of the movie. Maybe I asked you this before, but like, what is the kind of feeling of the movie for you? Casino Royale, that is.
For me, the feeling of the movie, taking away the context, like we rambled on for ages. The feeling of the movie is just is a grounded, kind of, and I guess this isn't the best way to describe a feeling, maybe, but it is it watching the film just visually, it gives me the feeling of this grounded spy thriller, that centers around this character. You know, I feel it doesn't leave me with a particular like, and maybe this is a fault to you. It seems like it is, and that's cool, but it doesn't leave me with like somberness. It doesn't leave me with happiness. You know, I don't sum it up that way. It just kind of leaves me with like this journey of this person and how they develop, um and the tone of the nature of it being a reboot. I don't know. I'm explaining that poorly. I guess it really does all tie into the context thing, maybe, but um Do you feel? I guess I assumed it for you, but do you feel that is lacking in this movie?
Yeah, well, like if a movie can't leave you with a feeling, to me that's like the ultimate flaw of a movie, you know. That's like that
Okay,
the movie is
really?
kind of void if it just leaves you with a kind of vague sense of entertainment, I think.
I mean, I definitely disagree with that. Like, I think leaving a movie with a feeling is great. I don't see it as a requirement by any means.
But at some point, I'm not saying you have to necessarily feel, really emotional and, you know, you have to cry for it to be a good movie. Or you don't have to like
Yeah,
cry tears of joy or whatever. But like
no.
I'm just sort of just talking about like last week with Collateral. That kind of that kind of communicated that was still a cool action film. It had cool uh you know actiony scenes, very witty and stuff like that, like this movie.
Hmm.
But it also just had a kind of unique like LA noir kind of feeling, you know. And that's not necessarily something I can say. Oh, this feeling sadness. It left me with a feeling of sadness. It just kind of that movie kind of has an atmosphere, you know. To me, Casino Royale doesn't really have that. Doesn't have a vibe.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Of course, castle reference. I I I love how in the second episode of this goddamn podcast already we're getting deep into the differences in how we view films. I think that's great, and I think that it would be boring if we both 100% had the same views.
Yeah.
Um, but to counter that, I just find, for me, from a film, I just want an engaging story. That's all I want. I don't care if it leaves me with a feeling. John Wick doesn't leave me with a feeling. Actually, no, that's a lie. It leaves me with joy. That's what it leaves me with. It leaves me gritting.
Okay. I shouldn't. Maybe I phrased it badly, but like John Wick is a movie that I would say absolutely has what I'm talking about because it has its own
Oh, okay.
noir, edgy kind of tone, feel, vibe that's communicated through the cool techno music, the cinematography. It's all kind of like
Hmm.
there's lights and it's like all noir and stuff like that. I still think this is Casino Royale's better, but like that's kind of what a big thing that I want from a movie. Its own style is what I'd call it.
Sure, sure. No, 100%. I think this movie absolutely has that style, and I think it's represented the most. I don't think it's represented visually much, but I think the most it's represented visually is in the casino, which we haven't talked about yet, and we definitely will. But I think its style is its narrative of a reboot, which sounds. I know that sounds like a cop out. It sounds like a real dumb thing to say. I get it, but I think that is its style. That is what it's going for. That is its unique take, if you will. Because yeah, I don't know. I feel like it is
Yeah,
that kind of Batman Begins thing.
but that
Isms.
that's kind of a concept though. That's not like something you can see in the movie. Like you can see the noir kind of feel of John Wick. Like
Oh, sure.
Batman Begins might be part of the same rebooting concept or whatever that was part of this that was happening at this time. But it also has its own kind of gritty style and stuff like that. Those are two separate things.
Yeah. Well, I think this movie does have a granite style, and I think all you got to do is look at the other Bond movies to see that. Like, I just think it does have that. It's not. I don't think you're right though. It isn't as visually prevalent as Batman Begins or John Wick or anything else. But I just don't. You're right. Visually, I'm definitely having to dig visually for it, and I think the casino is it. But um, yeah, I think the style is in that. I don't know. I don't think it has a visual style as much, but I think it still has a style.
Okay. No, I mean that's fine if you don't get as much from a visual style, from a movie, like if you just care about the story. But I'm saying personally, if a movie's visual style is kind of the thing it's kind of trying to communicate in a way. But that's obviously where we differ.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Good point.
Because that's like, to me, that's like the expression of the filmmaker, the style, and the yeah, all that goes along with it, I guess.
Um, but I do largely understand what you're saying, and I agree with you that the visual style isn't overly prevalent in the movie. But Casino Royale, you know, it's called Casino Royale. It has a casino in it. I really like the casino sequence. And I think visually, it doesn't have a, from a cinematography perspective, from a photography perspective, it doesn't have, any visual flair necessarily, but it is the aspect of the movie I find that visually, in very much the setting itself and the way, the feeling you get for the set as well. The set design's really cool. How that is what sets it apart. That is what's prevalent about it compared to other films in its genre. You don't really get this high stakes poker sequence, um, in other films, and I feel like the movie does a really good job of laying out the different characters on the table. Obviously, there's mainly there's two or three main ones, um, but laying out the characters on the table, setting, conveying the environment that they're in. You get a really good feel for the room, if that makes sense. I don't know. I feel like I really, maybe, I guess it's as a result of the direction. I really get a good feeling for that room and how everything's kind of staged in it. I I love the dialogue and how, as someone who doesn't play poker and doesn't fully understand, I understand the rules, um, fairly well, I think, but I don't definitely understand them fully. I love how the film does a great job at explaining to the audience without sounding too expositiony, explaining to the audience like the core of what's happening. They're like, is he bluffing? Is he not bluffing? Is he going to raise him? Is he not? Like, it's asking the most basic questions in the dialogue to get you invested without getting too caught up in like, oh, he's got 8 hearts and that means,
Yeah, you can't, because the thing is, if you don't play poker, you're not really gonna understand. I'm not talking down to people who don't play poker. I'm just saying, like, you're not gonna understand what's happening on the table or whatever. So I guess you kind of have to have those small expositional moments, but they just kind of they feel too much like exposition to me. Like, but yeah, at the same time, they have to be there. So it's kind of a
absolutely.
necessary evil, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. So you're saying you'd just prefer if they didn't have to say that shit at all, which is fair enough.
Yeah, but they do. So they have to say something
Yeah.
to give a little, give people a little bit of knowledge of what's happening if they don't understand it. So
And I'm just saying, I think the way that they do that, the way they're like, we've got to be clever about this, the way they do it, it feels genuine. It feels good. They get to the core of it. They don't start explaining the rules. They don't start, weighing up the different values or the cards or any bullshit like that. They just get to the core of, it's really just about bluffing or not.
oh god, the scene where like Lashif loses, right?
Hmm.
Am I really gonna explain the rules of poker? Okay, so he has like
Do you have to?
he has like a6, and like Bond goes all in, and on the table there's like there's what is there? There's a 6, an 8, and like two aces, some other crap. All right, so Lashif Lashif has the a6, so he has three aces and two sixes, right? And
Hmm.
there's like two there's like two possibilities that could beat him. The what Bond has, the straight flush, or like an ace 8, which, you know, from a poker standpoint, it's silly that Lashif actually went in on that, and the movie kind of presents him as he's a mathematical genius that's great at poker or whatever. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of silly when he loses. Like in real life,
Oh, okay.
like at poker, quote unquote expert like him wouldn't have gone in when Bond went all in. Is all I'm saying, but because he would have thought
Right.
he would have thought he had Ace 8.
Okay. Interesting. Well, yeah, I definitely can't speak to that. I've got no clue, but that sounds like that. From what you just explained, that sounds like a valid criticism to me.
People who are watching the poker scenes, who don't play poker, um, they might understand a bit of what's happening, but they're just there to see Bond beat the bad guy, and then so okay, the people who don't play poker who watch a scene don't understand all that's happening in it, and the people who do play poker who watch a scene think it's silly. So I don't know. It's kind of not not good either way, you know.
You're kind of not serving either audience.
Yeah, it's still it's still well shot and well presented, but just the game, the cards they played, it wasn't realistic. But I mean, it's a movie. You got to have that kind of oh, he has four jacks kind of thing. He has a straight flush kind of thing. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that crazy kind of probability where everyone on the table has something amazing. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that was great. The part where they all put down their amazing cards, and somehow, like, even I understood that, like, I got like the one that came after had just beaten the one previous, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
so on and so on.
yeah. It's just yeah.
um, I can't not mention the ending scene, okay? Because the ending scene, it it's so good, and it means a lot to me because I just love. It's like, okay, it's like so meta. Obviously, it's like, oh, get it? Here's the part where he becomes James Bond because he says the thing. Like I totally get that. Um, he says I'm James Bond. He said what hell is it? I've already forgotten. Bond, James Bond. He says it right. So it's like, oh crap, that's the part where he becomes James Bond, right? Like I get on that level. It seems kind of obvious, but I just think it works so well. It works so well for me because it works. I feel like it works contextually. It's not a Marvel moment. It's not even a Star Wars moment where a character says something or does something that's like totally like winking to the audience and that they totally wouldn't say in that setting. I feel like it makes perfect sense. Bond would just like, this guy says, "Who is he?" and he walks over and he's like, I'm James Bond, just letting you know. Like, I like it so much because it works on that meta level that's total fan service, but also works contextually as well. And then, of course, just the main theme plays for the only time in the movie, right at the end. Really cool symbolically for me. How do you feel about it?
I don't think I like it as much because, like as we were talking about earlier, it like that seems like something you would say at the end of a change or a character arc, and just goes back to our arc discussion where I don't think he's fully changed or changed into anything.
Personal development. It's really not. It's no total. It's not a total transformation. It's not a life's journey. It's just personal development from becoming the kind of brash, reckless, egotistical. I like the scene where Vesper tells him, there's not enough room in this elevator for me and your ego. Um, it's all that development, and then transforming into the person who doesn't trust anyone, who then that in itself recontextualizes how we look at the whole Bond girl thing in general. Um, and then at the same time, just how he becomes, I think, much more tactical in his approach, and just less emotional. I guess less. What's a good word there? Less. Um,
Like more detached.
less. Yeah, more detached. Yeah, exactly, and less fiery and less. Um, yeah, less. He doesn't take things as personally. I guess it kind of kills that personal aspect to his life and how he deals with his job and his career and all that. And then another thing that I love that surfaces that I haven't mentioned yet is you know when Vesper asks him, yeah, do you have like a problem killing these people? Doesn't it bother you? And he says, no, I wouldn't be good at my job. And she basically calls him out for that's just rubbish. Like, dude, this shit has to bother you. And
Yeah,
the fact
but that
that
but
that's really cool.
the problem is that that's near the start though. Like that's not a change that happens to him. That's just something that's already there.
But it's not though. That's what I'm saying. She calls him out for. He says he doesn't care. She says no, you do, and she's right. He does care, and then he grows not to care as much.
I mean, I feel like he just doesn't care at the start. He kills those two people and doesn't really seem to feel for it.
No, but that's the thing. He doesn't seem to, but that's the point. He's putting it on. Like that's what that exchange is about. At least that's what I think. Absolutely, because he straight up says it, and then she challenges. She's like, yeah, I don't know about that." And like the fact that that scene exists at all, like indicates, dude, he's totally putting on. It's subtext. Like I don't know. I don't feel like there has to be a scene where he goes, "Oh, Vesper, you're right." Like I don't know. I feel like it absolutely worked for me anyway. I totally got that out of it.
He doesn't really show that with his actions though, or his acting.
I know, I know, but it's just I know. It's kind of like it's subtext. I don't know. It's just
Yeah,
it's not traditionally executed. I
but
don't think
like,
it's like it's not very literal. It's not literally shown or anything like that. And maybe I don't know. Maybe that's a problem you have with the arc. I'm not sure. The arc isn't traditionally indicated and explicitly, outlined. It's not like, oh, this is where he feels this. This is where it's kind of. It's more like this is just an action plot that has these different moments that kind of indicate growth on a level that's never explicitly shown.
yeah. So that's like telling. Like that's not. I think that's that's just telling the audience that he's he's guilty and feels something when he kills people, but doesn't show the audience that.
No, it's not because it's not like he doesn't. Vesper doesn't go to like literally like killing people bothers you. Oh, actually, excuse me. She literally
She
does. That's
does.
a good point. But no, she does. But it's not about. It's the purpose of the scene, though. It's not about. It's not. She's not literally like saying to the audience. Like it's not telling the audience. It's not about that. It's not. She's not literally just. It's not a line of dialogue that exists to tell the audience that fact. She's not going like, "Oh, killing people bothers you, doesn't it, James?" It's like it's a scene that works contextually, and it's a scene that does challenge that aspect of him. I understand what you're saying. That it is there's no. I totally agree and get that there's no um, physical representation of it in Daniel Craig's performance in any moment in the film. I agree with that, but it's that it's. I don't think it exists to tell the audience. I think it's showing in a. Maybe I'm reaching. I totally get why you'd think that, but I don't see it's telling in a way that's showing. It's like it's showing through dialogue. It's not
Yeah,
telling. There's like a
I
difference.
think I think it's just a really subtle, well executed way of telling, but it's still telling. Like you can't argue that it's okay. Maybe it's showing through her character or the conversation or whatever, but
That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah, but it's a subtle way of telling.
Okay, but you just said like okay, I'll definitely concede that. That's fair enough. But then you said you thought it was well executed. So like in that sense, even if it is, I don't think telling in
Yeah,
itself is an automatic shit.
I don't think it's a well executed way to show his lack of coldness. I just think, like, for what they did, for a scene where they just tell the audience that he is, he's not emotionally detached, he's guilty and stuff when he kills people and stuff like that, that was a very good way to do it. It was very subtle, very, like, built in way to do it. But a better way that they could have done it was actually just shown to be could have been shown through some of his acting, some of his actions, like any of that. But instead, they just
Yeah,
did a really well, like, subtle way of telling it, but well executed subtle way of telling it.
yeah, yeah. No, I guess so. I guess that's a good point. Um, I mean, I think the shower scene is an example of showing. I think I think the bitch is dead, which is just amazing. I think that that's a line that is showing. I don't think that's not telling. That's not like I don't care about her anymore. Yeah. Anyway, I'm repeating myself, but um, I think there are those showing moments that you're talking about. But no, I agree with you that it is a good way of telling in that way, in that scene. I'm with you there.
Okay,
Well, I mean, lastly, just because I haven't really mentioned her yet, shout out to Judy Dench. Okay, what a treasure.
it's pretty good.
She's great in this movie, man. I just love I just love like all the the Britishisms, the dialogue. Her screaming, where's bloody Bond? I'm I'm not even going to attempt to. That was terrible. But I don't know. I just love her interactions with Bond, how their relationship develops. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I love all that stuff. Do you have any other major points of discussion? Anything you want to mention about Casino Royale?
I mean, I feel like there's still quite a bit to talk about though.
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like we covered it all pretty good. Honestly, I think I adequately described all the aspects I love about the movie. Um, at least I tried to, and I agree with Fitzy that Bond's arc is such an important aspect to this movie that I like, and I agree with Fitzy. It's not traditionally presented, and it's not, it could have been more showing in the performance, etc., and other moments. But I don't know. I still think it's effective as it is. And I think the fact that they did it at all is kind of a plus, to be honest. And maybe that's like setting low expectations, but I don't know. The fact that they had balls to do anything like this at all is kind of, I don't know, kind of impresses me to an extent.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the fact that okay, it's time to cast another James Bond. Okay, let's pick Daniel Craig. And the fact that they could have easily just written a script about a space invasion, or they could have just written a script about some kind of submarine base takedown or some bullshit, right? The fact
Yeah.
that they had the balls to at least um, attempt to give him an arc, and I think they did it really well. You don't think they did it as well as I do, but either way, I still think the result is quite impressive.
I mean, so that kind of worldly Bond adventure with, the crazy invisible cars and all that,
Yeah.
that was kind of what was stale and, what people were sick of at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
I think going back to the original novel, the first one, was kind of
Mm-hmm.
the most conservative choice that they could make. I wouldn't call it too bold.
Possibly, but all I'm saying is that I don't think the choice to do that in this movie is an obvious choice. I think like they could have totally gone a more grounded approach. I agree with you. What you're saying about people were sick of the old ways of the franchise is absolutely right. I just think that then they could have made the choice. Okay, let's do grounded, let's do realistic, let's do all these things. That's totally cool. And they probably would have done that anyway. But the choice to do this book, the choice to do this origin story, that's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I feel like that is impressive. That is having some foresight. So let's reveal our score out of 10, as we do. What are you going to give Casino Royale
Oh,
out of 10? I hate that I already know what you're going to give it because of your goddamn letterboxd account. God damn it. I
well,
was hoping to
well,
convince you. Have I convinced you?
well. Last night I was thinking about what I'd give it, so I deleted that because I wasn't sure. But
Oh, okay. Okay,
I don't
cool.
know.
That's good.
I'm between a 6 and a 7, so I'll go 7.
God damn it. God damn it.
What do you
Oh,
give it,
well.
a 5 or so? 6?
Casino Royale is a 10 out of 10 movie to me. It's a god tier movie. I love it. I could watch it at any time. Oh, not any time. I don't really watch movies at any time, but I could watch it once a month. No problem. I bloody love it, as I've made
Hmm,
clear.
there you go.
Wow. Okay. There you go. Hopefully these letterbox reviews being posted don't bite us in the ass for this segment in the future. Whatever. Who cares? Who cares, as they say?
Mm,
Oh, as I said last week about everyone suffering from the coronavirus, who cares?
yeah, that is what you said. You're like Bond, you know. That's why you like this movie. You just don't care
Absolutely.
about people, you know.
Yeah.
You call women bitches and stuff. You're just a badass, aren't you?
Oh my god. Oh, wow.
Anyway,
I mean, I would say the bitch is dead just because it's badass, not because I think the person's a bitch or anything. But yeah. Anyway, um, holy shit! All right, we talked about the movie for a fair while. I'm actually kind of proud of that.
yeah, it's good.
Let's quickly, I was thinking we'd dedicate more time to them than last week, but we'll see how we go. I've got no idea. We might do them quickly, we might not. But what have we been watching recently? Fitzy, kick us off.
Been watching some Westworld, I guess. Some
I
I
guess.
was up to like the I was halfway through season 2 like a year ago, and now I'm up. So
Mm-hmm.
I've just seen like some of some of the last episodes of season 2 up to the finale now.
You
Cause
got through the mediocre stuff to the good stuff.
yeah, exactly. Cause Aaron Paul's gonna be in season 3. I gotta be there for Aaron Paul.
You got to support your boy Jesse.
Yeah. How is Aaron Paul in
Absolutely.
the new season? Is he good?
He's really good. He's really good.
What about you? What have you been watching, Zach?
Well, I'm excited to talk about Westworld with you because I've been also watching Westworld, but I'm been waiting many a year, 2 years now, in fact, for season 3, and we've got the premiere. That's all we've got so far. God, it's good, dude. It's so good. I'm so happy that you caught up. You got through Samurai World, which in season 2 wasn't really great. Because now we can go back to. I know we used to always have kind of philosophical discussions about Westworld, and boy, oh boy, have we got have we got more of those to have.
Did we? I don't remember that.
Oh wow, really?
Did we really? Did we talk about Westworld in the past?
Great to see you didn't value those.
Hmm?
we totally have.
Have we? Okay.
Oh yeah. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to talking about it a lot more. But I think the show's awesome, dude. The
Yeah.
the season 2 finale is like trippy on like. Oh, you haven't seen it yet, but it's like trippy on. I've rewatched it. It's trippy on. It's so goddamn. It's crazy. It's like it's trippy to a level like it's almost gets too much. It's like holy shit. Like they're like balancing on the tightrope. Like, dude, this is getting so close to too much. But they like somehow just managed to kind of like not go too much. At least for me, I'm sure a lot of people. It's probably lost a lot of people, but I don't know. It's wild. And then season 3, so stoked to see where it goes. Aaron Paul, great. His character is already providing really interesting philosophical concepts, and it's really obvious. I think the role that that character is going to play, from an ideological perspective. No, I don't know where the story's going, but I think that's really cool, and we can talk about that. I don't know as you watch more, as it develops or whatever. But I'm excited for that. I'm digging it. Other than that, Better Call Saul, still great. Please watch it. And Clone Wars, ticking along. I'm enjoying it. You know, it feels like more Clone Wars, and I like that. I've seen a lot of people haven't been digging it. They're like, "Oh, this shit's like filler," and I'm like I feel like people forgot what Clone Wars was. Everyone's got like memory loss on that one. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what I've been watching. You got nothing else there?
No, nothing else.
All right, it's time for a news chat. News
Oh yeah, news
chat. News chat. I tried to make a little jingle. It was terrible.
That's alright.
Dude, is podcasting exhausting or what? I'm bloody tired. I can't be bothered reading this shit.
Yeah.
Are you tired by this?
Tired by what? Tired now. A little.
Yeah, by talking so long.
Yeah, a little. A little.
All right, so news chat.
There's
Let's
a
do
news
it.
up.
We mentioned that we definitely needed to talk about this earlier in the week, and that's the fact that a bunch of movies are going straight to VOD, straight to rental, in response to no one going to the cinemas. Those movies are at this time Birds of Prey, The Gentleman, The Invisible Man, The Hunt, and Bloodshot, all releasing on VOD early. I believe most, if not all of them, actually not all of them, most of them I believe are currently already available for rental. And they're available for rental for $20 in the US. Do you know how much that is here?
No, well, it would probably be like 25 or something, but I'd imagine it would also be 20 in Australian. Like, I don't know. I feel like they wouldn't go too far, you know. I mean, a rental is $5. There's only so far they can. There's only so expensive they can make a rental, you know.
I mean, it's crazy that these new movies are going to be able to be viewed in the comfort of our own homes, like now.
Yeah. Well, are you thinking of renting any of those for the low price of $20?
Of course. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Possibly. I'm definitely not ruling it out. See, now I know you mentioned to me earlier in the week you thought $20 was real steep.
Yeah. I mean, I just think your average rental is $5, and if people have access to such a wide market of rentals, you know, $20 is pushing it a little bit for for something you can have for 2 days. But I don't know. What do you think about it?
I somewhat agree with you. I think at this time with what's going on, I think people understand the context of how this is happening, why this is happening,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I don't think, like, don't get me wrong, I don't think these are going to do as well as they would have if they'd come out for rental for $5, right? But obviously, At the same time, I still think this is going to be a good enough strategy. It's not going to make us nearly as much, I don't think, as if they were just in theaters normally.
Yeah,
But I think $20 is the right choice, I guess is what I'm saying, because at the end of the day, that is close enough to the cost of film tickets to go to the theater. And I think people just understand at this time that, look, I would have gone to the theater for this. I'll pay the same price to not go to the theater effectively, so I don't bloody get infected. Yeah, so I don't know. I totally get what you're saying. It is steep in comparison to other things, but I think the nature of the circumstances kind of takes that away a little bit.
yeah, I think it's the right choice given the circumstances, but it could be $15. What's that gonna do? Reducing the price by $5?
Loses them $5 per viewing.
Yeah, but so many more people are gonna actually buy it if it's the same price of a movie ticket.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We get into economics there, but I mean, not necessarily. I don't know if lowering the price by $5 necessarily, creates enough of an increase in volume to make it worth it necessarily. I mean, I don't know that as a fact. I'm just saying, like, that has to be a consideration.
Well, from a personal standpoint, I think like if The Invisible Man were $15, I'd probably rent it now, but not at 20. It just seems too high.
Oh yeah, well, fair enough then. Yeah, I mean, 20 does seem high. I get you, but yeah, I understand. I understand, but I mean, obviously, I'm sure they considered the price carefully. And the other factor to consider is the fact that Jaden mentioned this to me, our friend,
Who?
via messaging, and that's who's that? And that's the fact that obviously theaters, films have to be shown in theaters, I believe, for 2 weeks in order to be considered for Academy Awards. Now, obviously, or any awards, obviously, awards aren't necessarily on the front of everyone's mind. I'm sure the studio would rather make return on their investment rather than get awards consideration. But nonetheless, it is something to consider.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Dune's gonna win a bunch of awards probably because of all the delays and stuff. I mean, if it's up in if it's still up in December or whatever, you've
Mm.
got just so many potential awards for Dune this year.
Are you just like, yo, all these people suffering, all the sacrifice is worth it to get June that Academy Award?
I'm not saying it's worth it. I'm not saying the coronavirus is worth it.
I know you're not. I know you're not.
I'm just saying it's a potential outcome. It's not worth it, but it'll win like cinematography and I don't know, directing or something. I reckon.
Well, I mean, 1917 should have won Best Directing this year, and that was a travesty. So,
Yeah. I still haven't seen that. Sam Mendes and Roger Deakins. They also did Skyfall. So there you go.
other films to consider are the fact that Black Widow's been delayed indefinitely, and they just released the final trailer like what was it, a week ago now, right? So, yeah,
That's good.
we'll see. We'll see when that comes out.
Another good outcome.
What?
Another good outcome.
Is that a good thing?
I think it's a good thing.
Why?
I don't know. I didn't want to see that.
But I'm sure millions of other people did.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking about myself right now.
Okay, fair enough. That's pretty good. And Onward, the Pixar movie that came out last week in the US and hasn't even released in Australia yet, is coming to Disney Plus in just less than 2 weeks. Holy shit, dude.
What?
The fact that a new Pixar movie goes straight to streaming, that's like, what a time, what a world.
Are you excited for that, Zach?
I'm excited for it. I'm definitely going to check it out. Absolutely. All right, finally, okay. I didn't want this to be positioned finally because it's not the note I really want to end on because I hate hearing myself talk so much, especially after I'm tired at this point. But hell, I'm going to do it, okay? There have been reports this morning that, and this is, get ready for Star Wars rant time, okay? I want to keep it about a minute. I'm not going to go too long. Rosario Dawson has apparently been cast as Ahsoka in The Mandalorian Season 2. And I saw all the goddamn Twitter replies, okay? Everyone's like, oh, isn't this cool? Look, we'll see Ahsoka in The Mandalorian. This shit sucks, okay? It's garbage. I hate it so much. Ahsoka should never be in live action, Okay, she's an animated character. Ashley Eckstein is the voice of that character. I'm totally gatekeeping like a total fanboy right now. I'm very self-conscious about it. But hell, I will not stand for this crap. Okay, my boy Dave Filoni, please don't fail me on this. Okay, I don't want to see this crap. I can't handle it.
Well, I think it's good, Zach.
I always playing the devil's advocate. I love it. I love it. Is there any other news stories? Any other bits of information that we should share before getting out of here? Because God, I want to get out of here right now.
I don't think so.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cinema Effect. Next week, I can reveal that we will be doing Phantom Thread. Wait, is it the Phantom Thread or Phantom Thread?
Phantom Thread. Yes.
Just Phantom Thread. Okay. Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Fitzy's stoked about it, obviously.
Finally.
We're going to be talking about...
Good movie.
Non-action
movie.
We're going to be talking about... Oh, my God. Oh, yeah, if I have my way, we'll do action every week. No, definitely not. But I'm excited for Phantom Thread. We're going to be doing that next week. So, like I said at the start, if you want to go above and beyond and write in a review, like a short review, I'm not reading paragraphs, bro. So if you want to do a short review, that'd be awesome. If you don't do it, that'd make me look like an idiot. So maybe that's why you won't do it. Just to laugh at me, which is fair enough, I guess.
It's on Netflix. If you guys want to watch it this week in advance.
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. So you've got no excuse. You can watch Phantom Thread and actually understand what we're saying the whole of next week. And other than submitting a review for Phantom Thread, feel free to submit any other questions about literally anything. I'm more than happy to divulge, or I should say, what's the word? Allocate, I should say. Divulge. Allocate as much time as I want to talking about literally anything, such as Cadbury chocolate or how good tigers as a species are. Literally anything. Feel free to submit it. I'll definitely read it out. How good does that sound?
Did you, by the way, on our Spotify, it says, I think I name it. Do you know this, right?
I know what it says. So I mentioned at the start that the road to iTunes, the road to getting on Apple Podcasts was a long and difficult one over the last 7 days, and God, it was. And part of that road to getting there very much involved having to change the podcast's name temporarily to trick Apple's AI into thinking I wasn't submitting something that had already been submitted.
Okay.
So I changed what Fitzy's talking about is I changed the Spotify name to some other generic bullshit movie name. I can't remember.
Real People.
But it's all back now. Real People. Is that what I did? Yeah. So it's all back to normal.
And doesn't make me think of it.
It did too. It did too. I like dogs in the description. I had to change all that, but it's fine. Everything's back to normal. You can follow the links in the description, listen on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and the correct name is there now. So that's all that matters. And you can find, along with the podcast apps, all our social media links, letterbox links, all that fun stuff in the description of the YouTube video.
Good afternoon, good day, good afternoon, and good night. Oh, that's not the right quote, isn't it? Hold on.
What the hell are you trying to quote?
The Truman Show quote.
Oh, okay. While you do that, I'll quickly lead into the last sentence. Fitzy, thank you very much for joining me on this second ever episode of Cinema Effect. Great to have your company.
Good morning, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.